I love bedtime stories. For me, they lay a foundation of all the possibilities and opportunities I can and might travel in my life, like almost a sort of time machine to my future. When I was a child, I used to lay tucked in my twin-size bed, impatiently waiting for her to come. My mother was hands down the best bedtime storyteller I ever knew. And her stories were just simply hilarious because she would always make them up on the spot, improving. So these stories would go as far as a romantic encounter with her and George Clooney in a field of maize. It truly was an all-time best. But my mother could best be described as a badass Latina. She worked for the Mexican government her whole life as a diplomat, traveling the world to be a representative of Mexico for her community. She prided herself on being an independent, strong woman who did not like asking help from others. Although, when I was 11 years old, I learned she was going to need all the help she could get. A few days after this picture was taken, she would be diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. It was a shock to all of us. I didn't know how to feel, if I should be positive and believe that she was going to get through this, or cry in shame at the fact that she might die. After 2 years of battling cancer, getting surgery, doing chemotherapy, radiation, alternative medication, and even a last resort trip to India, my mom died on December 19th, 2016. I can still remember the last time I hugged her. She had urged me to go to Mexico to visit family while she would stay home for the holidays. And I remember we hugged for longer than usual, almost like she knew it was going to be the last time. Well, she left at what felt like the worst possible moment. I was 13. I needed my mom and all of her magical stories. I laid in a perpetual tunnel, one side leading to light and the other into a deep abyss. To me, it felt like all of my friends and family were moving on, walking towards the light. Well, I just wanted to curl up on the dark side. For 6 months, I laid in that tunnel. I couldn't find my way, I couldn't find my story, I couldn't find any stories. Instead, I got mad. I became a completely different person, a person who was constantly acting out, yelling at others unnecessarily, overreacting. I was mad that the world had taken the one person who was always supposed to be in my life. I was mad that she couldn't be a survivor and live to see me graduate, get married, have kids, etc. But we're not here to listen to me rant on about this, because one day I had a realization. There's this book that my mom bought me. You know, it's one of the few bedtime stories that she would read to me because, you know, improv queen. But it's this story called Rosita y Conchita. It's a bilingual book about 2 sisters finding each other on the Day of the Dead. One of the sisters was in the realm of the dead while the other was still alive. Conchita is creating a beautiful altar for her sister, while Rosita is wandering through the other world, trying to find clues that can lead her to Conchita. Rosita does every single thing she can, going through, following all of these clues, but they lead her to dead ends. And she's truly given up hope because she feels like everything she's tried, it still isn't enough to bring her to Conchita. All hope seems lost. And then Rosita reminds herself of one last thing. She needed to follow the one thing, the only thing, that had kept her and Conchita together even when they were so far apart: the closeness of their hearts. So, Rosita followed her heart, and that led her to Conchita. Now, all of this long explanation is to say that I realized I was a character in my own story. One I didn't like, one I wanted to change. My character had reached rock bottom. And I knew from all the stories I had consumed as a child that when a character hit the bottom, up was the only way to go. I realized that the worst fear of any child, losing a parent, had already happened. So, there was nothing more to fear. I had to take small steps, at the very least, and keep holding on to the hope that good things were to come. I had to follow my heart and let myself be loved by others, just like Rosita did. So, I decided to write my way out of the tunnel, narrating a new story for myself. My dad and I moved here and started writing the next chapter of our lives at SHP. I would no longer simply be the girl who lost her mother. I was ready to start anew. I wanted to be the girl who was fearlessly sharing stories as she carefully tried to figure out her own. Before, I had wasted so much time hating the pain that my mom's death had caused me that I forgot to see all the other incredible things that surrounded me. By treating the suffering and pain like my worst enemy and pushing it into a corner of my life, I was just hurting myself more. So now I embrace the daily challenge of being a motherless daughter in a time when girls need their mothers the most. From finding a new family with the drama club to creating affinity spaces to empower minorities on campus, I can happily say that I've taken advantage of every single one of the opportunities that have been handed to me to the fullest extent. Acting gave me a new purpose, a new storyline for this next chapter. I love sharing theater with people and using it as my avenue to help others make sense of themselves and the world we inhabit together. Now, I know that it's not every day you hear about a 17-year-old girl losing her mom, but the thing that connects all of our talks today is humanness. And to me, there is nothing more human than experiencing death and loss at multiple points in our lives. Normally, we tend to shield ourselves from the unpleasant things in life, but if we want to really thrive, we need to look forward to these things. In other words, suffering and loss don't necessarily need to be the enemies we spend our whole lives hating. If there's anything this year has taught us, it's that loss and sadness come in so many shapes and sizes. In other words, COVID-19 caused loss in every single one of our lives, no matter how big or how small. At some point this year, everyone lost something. Whether you missed your entire senior year or lost valuable experiences with friends or a trip or a job or lost a loved one, your emotions are valid. We need to open our hearts and accept that pain as a part of ourselves. We must learn to love, or else we can never be truly happy and free like the loved ones who left us would want us to be. Rather than waiting for sadness to overcome you, the healthier way is to learn to walk with it, hand in hand. Even though some would say I had to grow up too quickly, I would say I learned what love is too early. Love fills us with compassion. Compassion means to suffer with, and as humans, we owe it to the ones we love to accompany them in their pain. I accompanied my mother through hers, and in doing so, I learned about unconditional love. The vulnerability and maturity I have gained through this journey I traveled has taught me how to be a support system for others. I've learned that offering compassion is the best way to expand our hearts and write new stories filled with love. Everyone has a story. This journey has taught me the value of not only finding my own voice and my own story, but also the power in striving to be a strong and compassionate character in the stories of others. Standing on this stage, I love my mom, and I know that wherever she may be, she loves me just as much. If I could change my mother's death, I don't know if I would do it in a heartbeat, because I recognize the fact that through her death, my future was reborn. Now, I finish each day no longer needing bedtime stories, but instead reflecting on the compassion, wisdom, and strength I've developed to create the new stories that await me. Thank you.